In the previous video, I talked about 3 things you should do as a teacher and 2 things you shouldn't do as a teacher. Well, this time I decided to take a look into another interesting job, designing, because, well, design's present in many of today's industries, but that doesn't mean it comes without its flaws. So that's why today I'm telling you 3 things you should do as a designer and 2 things you shouldn't do. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Now, the first thing you shouldn't do as a designer, it looks good. It's done then. For something to have a good design, it doesn't mean it just has to be good looking. No, it also has to be easy to use. Whenever you design a product, it is important to know if your product is easy to use by your main audience, because your customers won't buy the product just because it looks good, but also if it's easy to use, because if it's very complicated to use, despite its good design, it won't be bought at all. It's like sometimes what happened with certain cars where its center consoles had like 3,551 buttons. Despite it looked interesting, it was very confusing for the drivers to see how a lot of buttons and how to use them. And sometimes it even was dangerous for them. But now that's a thing of the past. Now, the first thing you should do as a designer, getting to know your main audience. Just like teaching, it is important to know who you're dealing with, who your main audience is, their age, their needs, their issues, because with all of that information, you'll have better idea of the problem you want to tackle. So whenever you start designing, you don't have much issue at all. So just like with teaching, with getting to know your students, get to know your main audience. Now, the second thing you should do as a designer, prototyping and testing. Because whenever you design something, the first version won't always mean that it's the final version. No. You must separate into certain stages, into prototypes, different models, and then share them with some of your main audience so they can tell you what's good and what's bad. And with what's bad, you try to fix all of those flaws, so whenever you launch it into the market, it doesn't have many flaws. So trust me, prototype and test. Now, the second and final thing you shouldn't do as a designer, in this case in art, colors everywhere. Because we all like to color, use all of our creativity, throw colors everywhere. Well, that's not always a good idea though. Despite we think it's colorful, it may not give good results sometimes. It is important to get to know how to use the colors properly, have proper combinations like this diagram right here. It may look boring for some, but to consider it as a guide, because with this guide, you will have very good pieces of art though, that may still look colorful with the right combinations and with the right usage. Now, the final thing that you should do as a designer, and for me the most important, innovate. Because innovation is something that you should always consider whenever you design a product, because it's good that you tackle into an issue with an idea that no one else would actually think about, just like what happened with the Wii, with having a console where you play moving around instead of sitting down with your controller. Innovation has to be your primarily idea, what you have to do first whenever you try to design something. Do something unique. It will feel good though. You'll have a better impact into the market you're trying to enter to. Now, just like with the previous video, many people may think that yes, they're very avoidable, yes, but not at all though. I think it's because many of today's designers aren't well prepared though. They don't have the proper education of how to design properly, use the elements properly or the colors. So I think they need proper education. So that's all for now. I hope you liked it.